Hey everybody, Ragnarok here, and as I mentioned in my previous video, I am switching over to chess videos, and as you can tell from my apartment, we're just about ready to move out. So I did want to record this video. It'd be my last video before we do move out of the apartment. Had some awesome memories here, and I want to devote this one to chess, and more specifically the Evans Gambit. If you don't know what a gambit is, it's all about sacrificing a pawn for position. And I'm kind of figuring out what I want to do with this channel. I figured I'd just jump into some games that I have played myself over the past month. A lot of them being speed chess games. A lot of them can also be longer games where I have a couple of days to make a move. But I'd like to jump into Evans Gambit. And this is the format of what you will see for Evans Gambit every time you play it. It all has to do with this b4 move right here. So if I go back to the initial moves of what it is to see the game, e4, I'm playing as white, e5 for black, and then knight f3, followed by knight c6, bishop c4, and bishop c5. Now this is the Italian game. It's a game I've been playing for over 10 years. It's usually my preferred way to play chess openings as white, if somebody counters with e5 to my e4. So the way that Evans Gambit goes is you do b4 here. Now it goes contrary to everything that you want to go after with chess, such as going after the center, not giving up pieces, but the idea being here that black's going to take at some point this pawn. He could take it right away, which is the general variation for Evans Gambit with the bishop right here. He could also take with the knight. He could also just back his bishop up here, or he could back his bishop up away somewhere else. Now, if you just move the bishop, unfortunately, you're just kind of losing a tempo. I could do something maybe like b5. The knight then has to move somewhere else, whereas I get the defender removed from this pawn, and I could potentially take here right now. I believe this goes into some other tactics where black does have a little bit of play, but the idea being if he goes like this, you know, I've got my pawn pushed a little far up here. I can defend it later on with something like a4. My knight's a little bit out of position, but I am a little bit better off here. I've actually gone up a pawn, whereas the opponent has gained really nothing out of it. So that's generally not the preferred way to go. The move most people do is take with the bishop here. And the idea is to attack the center. So that one move I was deflecting from the center, and now I am moving my pawn here to begin my attack and look towards d4 to be able to attack the center. And I'm gaining a tempo because the bishop is being attacked right now. So c3 is always the follow-up to whether the knight or the bishop takes on b4. So the bishop really has a couple options. He can move to a5, he can move back to c5, or he can move all the way back to e7. Those are usually the moves that most people will end up playing. In this particular game, my main focus is to break apart his king side. And looking back at the game, this guy was rated about 1500. I don't think either of us played this that strong. So this was me kind of relearning the Evans Gambit. So I just wanted to share with you what happened in this game. So I went c3. He ended up going bishop a5. And then I pushed the center. Black's pretty much always going to take back here. And then the next move is to castle, because the idea being you're going to attack the f7 pawn. That's the main idea of the Italian Gambit as well, or sorry, the Italian game as well as Evans Gambit, trying to get more pieces out. Usually this knight hangs back here most of the game. A lot of games are won with him still sitting back here and this rook doing nothing. So in this particular game, he ends up going with knight e7, and I believe that's probably one of the worst moves you can do in this scenario, because the main goal of what white is looking for is getting his queen here or something like that, maybe his knight up here, to be able to attack f7. And the main way black defends this usually is queen coming to either e7 or f6, because if the knight were to come out here and try to defend this, let's say my queen is over here, my bishop can eventually take this knight, removing the defender on f7. So that's not going to work out well for him. That's why I don't really think that knight to e7 is the best move, and I don't think that my counterattack in this particular instance is the best either. But in this case, I go with knight e5. I don't think it's the best move, like I said. I think better could be something like this to be able to attack here. But he can castle next move if I do that. So I figured I would just go for knight to g5. doubling up the attack on f7 and trying to kind of force him to make a move here. So he goes with a mistake, I believe, going with the knight e5 move. His goal was to be able to attack the or defend the f7 pawn, and at the same time attacking my bishop on c4. And generally when the knight gets to this square on e5 and your bishop in the Italian game is on c4, your bishop's usually going to be in trouble there. So you do want to make sure he is safe. And in this instance, I just go back to bishop to b3. Just trying to make sure he's safe. I still have my attack on here. I can push f4 at some point to try to kick that knight out. He ends up going here, h6. h6 because now I either have to make a decision. Maybe I come back, maybe I go to my full attack, I go in for it. I decide in this case to take the d pawn. The goal being he could take my knight, I'll take his knight back, and his knight has to make a decision. He has to move or he has to take my knight. And he decides to take my knight back, whereas I take his knight. I don't understand the move that he made here. This, I think, was a 3-minute game, so sometimes people play a little bit too quick, and I don't think that's the best move, because I just takes back, and now I get both of my bishops on the same files, both attacking the king side, which is now pretty much completely open. And I don't think there's really much compensation. I'm down 3 pawns. I've got 2 of his, so I'm down 1 pawn, but that whole gambit in the beginning has allowed me to open up his position. His bishop is still chilling back here. His rook is still back here. His bishop is also off the line. And the fact that his knight moved from c6 is also kind of troublesome for that bishop on a5. It's going to make it a little bit easier for me to get a little bit later. So his rook comes here for some reason. His goal is to defend this pawn. With the Evans Gambit, your whole goal is to stop them from castling. I believe he could have castled earlier in this game. He would have been just fine. But because he opened himself up, now this bishop is attacking and he cannot castle, or his king will be in trouble there. So he goes here. I decide to push f5 or f4 just so I can attack this pawn, kind of open up his king side even more. He takes back. My rook takes. And then he decides, I want to get my bishop out here. I'm going to go with d5. And again, I don't think this is the best move, but he's also kind of stuck in this. I don't have the best position, I'm a little bit more of an open position. I don't think his position is that great. It's all about kind of limiting his moves and what he can do next. So I decided to take, this isn't a sacrifice, it's more of a trade, and I get a pawn out of it. Bishop takes. He takes back here, and I think that's a big mistake because now I can come with check. And remember that bishop was hanging on a5. So now he has to move out of the way. Or he could block with a knight, but I can just take back. So he has to move somewhere. And I just take his bishop. So at this point, he has a bishop and a rook doing nothing. His queen is kind of stuck back here. I don't have my knight moving, as I mentioned in the beginning of the video. The knight really doesn't move that much in the beginning of the Evans Gambit. It just really doesn't have time to. But he pushes c6 for some reason. When you're up, the golden rule is to trade in chess, and he's just offering his queen right here for whatever reason. So I decided to take. King has to take. I think he wanted to be able to open his bishop to go somewhere. He does have this pawn that's only a couple of spaces away from my side, although I've got some things in the way that could really cut that off. No big problem there. But his knight is now pinned, so I'd like to take advantage of that if I can. Let's bring my knight into the game. He develops his bishop. Unfortunately, he cannot castle now to get away, and even if he could, his knight is going to be hanging on the e7 square. And this is a move to be able to block his king, so his king has to go somewhere to the left. And if it goes here, well, his knight's hanging. If he goes anywhere off this line once I check him, he's kind of a little bit screwed. So he decides to go rook here, check, because again, I was limiting his moves, trying to force him away. It's all about forcing your opponent to do something, or at least blocking off squares that they can go to. He has to block. I just take this pawn. No more threat of a passed pawn coming towards me. And at the same time, threatening a move such as knight c6. He has to go here to defend. And now, that's it. I'm threatening the fact that I can just bring my bishop onto e6. I can take here. I can take with rook. It's really just about trading, and I'm already up. Once I trade off the rest of these pieces, I really have 2 more pawns that can just kind of walk all the way up. Meanwhile, my king can be in the way of his pawns. So that was an example of the Evans Gambit. I've got a whole bunch of other videos I'd like to go over, strategies and things like that. I am working on my website, ragchess.com, for ragnarokchess.com, so that I can put together all sorts of things you guys may want to see. Again, I'm just trying to figure out what exactly to do next, but I figured I'd start off with things I know, games I've played. So let me know what you think. Obviously, I'm going to work on more as I moved into the new house, get a new layout, get a new, you'll see the new room that I have too. So thank you so much for watching, guys. Thank you for continuing to support this channel. I will continue to come out with more content, explain more of my processes, and of course, I'll get better along the way. So thank you so much for watching, guys. I'll see you next time.